A question I hear a lot from new screenwriters are things like, what do I need to think about when I'm writing my screenplay? So do I need to think about things like budget? Do I need to think about locations? Do I need to think about casting? And we're going to break that down. We're going to pull that apart and talk about all those things and even talk about why you should or should not think about those as you're writing your screenplay. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking if you're finding value. Thank you for subscribing if you haven't done that. Please be sure to check out links below. There's a free resource that might help you with story if you're having trouble with that. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in. What we're really talking about here is how much of the production process screenwriters have to pay attention to when you're writing a spec script. So you're writing a script, you're going to try to sell it. How much of that production process do you really need to be thinking about? And if you include something or don't include something, is somebody going to reject your script because of that? Now, let me just kind of put something to rest here right off the bat. People are looking for good stories. So if your story is good, whether you include these things or not, they're not really going to be deal breakers. And a lot of people think, oh, these are going to be deal breakers, and they're not. Occasionally they are. We're going to talk about the occasions when it might be a deal breaker. But as long as you're following these kind of general guidelines, you're going to be fine. Like, write a good story, tell it well, it's going to be fine. Now, are there things to think about? Yes, so let's talk about some of those. Let's get the big one out of the way first, which is budget. A lot of people hem and haw and wring their hands about budget. Oh, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know, it's just going to cost too much money, and I don't want them to reject my script because it's going to cost too much money. Put it in there. There are three basic budget categories as a screenwriter that you need to be aware of: micro, low, and everything else. A micro budget is really anything that's like less than $100,000. So if you're shooting it yourself, or a group of friends are shooting it, or you've got one investor and they've like, I got $50K to invest in this film, you're gonna shoot a short film, you're gonna try to get it in some festivals, whatever. Okay, you're on a micro budget. Now, yes, you need to pay attention to budget when you're writing, okay? You can't have, big flyover shots, and you can't shoot anything at Times Square in rush hour. You can't do that kind of stuff. Are there ways around it? There's always a way around it. That's why screenwriters are in demand. A low budget is anything under $2 million. So this would be like a small independent film, or a contained horror film, a drama that's kind of contained in a small town or set out some, like, these are the smaller kind of budget films. Now, when you're writing small budget or low budget or micro, yes, you have to pay attention to budget. You have to, okay? Because that's your intended audience. You're trying to sell it to them. They will kick it if there's something in there it's just too expensive, if they can't see like, oh, here's a way around it. So yes, you have to pay attention. But otherwise, if your story is bigger than a $2 million budget, don't worry about it. Okay, write the best story, write the best version of the story you can write. Then, if it sells, yeah, you might have to rewrite something. But for the most part, you don't really need to worry about it. You're trying to sell your story, so write the best version of the story you can. Don't worry about the budget unless it's a micro or a low budget. So if you're writing for one of those, then yeah, you kind of got to pay attention. But otherwise, write the best version of the story. And in considering the budget, it starts to bleed over into the locations. Locations can be a budget inflator. So yes, you have to be aware a little bit, but again, only if you're writing a micro or a low budget. If you're not writing either one of those, then put in the scene downtown, Times Square, rush hour, the nine. Like, put it all in there. Have the best moment you can. It better be justified, but as long as it's justified and it feels and makes sense for the story, put it in there. Don't worry about the locations. Don't worry about, oh, this country has rebates or this state has rebates, so if I set my story there, like, no, very few things actually get shot where they're supposed to get shot. You don't need to worry about that. You are writing the best story. Here's where I think it is. Here's the best moment. Here's the best place for that thing to happen. Put the location in, don't worry about it. Now let me make a side note here. So sometimes you're like, well, how do I know how much budget this is? How do I know how big this is? And an easy way to think about it is like this. The more popular, the more people, the more expensive. Okay, so if you have one person in a scene and it's not a popular place, it's a cabin somewhere in the woods, right? it's not that expensive, okay? If it's one person in the middle of Times Square that's empty, okay, that's a popular place. It's probably going to be a little expensive, but you can probably shoot it like early on a Sunday morning. It's going to be able to block it off with little problem, not going to be too bad, so maybe you can do that. But just kind of think about it. The more popular, the more people, the more expensive. And that will kind of help you navigate whether you can do things. All right, the last one we're getting to is cast. So when it comes to casting, do you have to think about it when you're writing? And the answer is no. No, you don't. I mean, you kind of want to imagine, would an actor want to play this part? And as long as you can imagine actors wanting to play that part, now don't get crazy and be like, oh no, The Rock would totally want to play a doctor and, as a little bit part. Well, maybe, but probably not. I mean, you have to be realistic when you're thinking about, would an actor play these specific parts? And if you're being realistic and you can imagine an actor or several actors wanting to play that part, that's fine. But you don't need to cast your film before you sell it. If you have a solid story, you don't need to worry about the budget, the location, the cast, or any host of other things related to the production. Okay, that's not your job. That's part of the shooting script. That stuff comes way later. Don't worry about that. When you're writing your script, don't worry about the budget. Okay, don't worry about locations. Don't worry about casting. Don't worry about rebates from this country or that state or whatever. This actor's got to deal with this production company, and if I pitch it to them, then that actor's going to play. Like, forget all of that. Don't worry about it. Write a good story, tell it well, and that's going to get you further down the road. So if you have a question about should you think about blank when it comes to a script, put it in the comments below if I haven't answered it here, if you can't extrapolate, because if it's related to micro low budget, then yeah, you need to think about it. If it's not, you don't need to think about it as a general rule. But if you have a specific question, put it below. I'll try to answer it. And if it's a really big question, I'll try to answer it in a future video. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. If it has, please be sure to like, subscribe, bell, all that stuff. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to check out the links below. Thank you so much again for watching. If you're going to tell a story that matters. See you later.